Have you ever noticed how the world often mistakes volume for strength? We live in a society where the loudest person in the room gets the attention. People often assume that those who shout the most, argue the hardest, or assert themselves aggressively are the strongest. But I want to tell you today, and I hope it stays with you, that real strength is not loud. True power is calm. True strength doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't need to dominate conversations or raise its voice to be recognized. In fact, often, the strongest people are the quietest ones in the room. Think about the women in your life who have left a lasting impact on you, not because they yelled, but because they carried themselves with composure. Maybe it was your mother who silently endured hardship to provide for the family without ever complaining. Maybe it was your teacher who guided you with patience and wisdom, never raising a voice but always being firm and consistent. Or perhaps it was a friend who faced betrayal, heartbreak, or failure and yet handled everything with grace. That is strength. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that inspires it naturally. Calmness is a form of power because it allows clarity. When you are loud, when you shout, when you react impulsively, you are reacting to the storm outside. But when you are calm, you are connected to the sky inside. A strong woman knows that she cannot control the wind, she cannot control other people's words, but she can control how she responds. And in that response lies her true power. She doesn't rush to prove herself because she knows her value doesn't need validation from everyone around her. She doesn't feel the need to dominate a conversation because she understands that wisdom is better heard in silence than noise. Silence is not emptiness. Calmness is not weakness. On the contrary, it is an intentional choice, a conscious decision to master yourself rather than fight the world with aggression. Strong women understand this better than anyone. They understand that when they stay composed, their presence alone communicates more than any words ever could. Imagine a room full of people arguing loudly, raising their voices, trying to assert dominance. Then imagine one person sitting quietly in the corner, calm, poised, listening carefully, observing. Over time, the room will naturally gravitate toward that person. People will respect that person. People will trust that person. Calmness commands authority because it shows control, and control is the essence of strength. Strength is also reflected in patience. A woman who can pause, reflect, and choose her words carefully demonstrates a type of courage that shouting cannot achieve. Reacting impulsively may feel satisfying in the moment, but it is fleeting. Responding with calmness, even under pressure, leaves a lasting impression. The world will always have noise, criticism, chaos, conflict. But the woman who remains steady amidst it all is like a lighthouse in a storm. She doesn't get swayed by every wave. She doesn't let the storm dictate her peace. That ability to remain calm when everything around you is turbulent, that is the mark of true strength. And let's not forget humility. Loudness often comes from a place of insecurity. People raise their voices when they feel the need to assert themselves because they fear they will not be noticed otherwise. Calm strength, however, comes from self-assurance. A woman who is strong in herself doesn't need to scream to prove her worth. She doesn't need to compete for attention or validation. She knows who she is. She understands her capabilities. and she carries herself with dignity. And that dignity, that quiet confidence, naturally draws people toward her. People want to be near someone who is centered, who is unshaken, who does not lose her composure for the sake of temporary attention. Strong women also know that calmness breeds influence. The world doesn't change because of anger or shouting. The world changes because of steady, deliberate, thoughtful action. A calm mind can think clearly, plan strategically, and act decisively. When a woman faces challenges calmly, she can inspire others to stay calm too. She becomes a role model, not for her volume, but for her poise. Her actions ripple quietly but powerfully, impacting people's lives in ways loud words never could. So, if you take anything from this today, remember this: strength is calm, not loud. It is not about who can speak the most or yell the loudest. It is about who can carry themselves with grace amidst chaos. It is about who can influence, inspire, and lead without aggression. It is about mastering oneself, managing emotions, and standing firm without needing to dominate. The strongest women you will ever meet are those who smile in adversity, who listen more than they speak, and who respond with wisdom instead of anger. They may not always be the center of attention in a noisy room, but their impact lasts far longer than the echoes of any shouted words. So the next time you feel the urge to shout to prove a point, remember real strength whispers. It endures quietly. It commands respect without raising a voice. And above all, it changes lives in ways that noise never can. Strong women don't shout. They silence not the world, but the doubts, the chaos, and the fear around them. And in that silence, their true power shines. We live in a world that often celebrates talking, convincing, promising, and persuading. We are told that if we say something enough, if we announce it loudly, if we declare it publicly, people will believe us. And yet, if we look around closely, we see that words without action are like empty vessels. They make noise, but they carry nothing. True strength, especially in women who inspire, is measured not by what they say, but by what they do. Actions speak louder than words. This is a simple truth, yet it is profound and often overlooked. Think of the most remarkable women in history, the women who changed the world, not with speeches alone, but with persistent, purposeful action. They didn't wait for the perfect moment to make a difference. They acted, often quietly, consistently, and with great courage. They didn't shout their intentions, they fulfilled them. Their legacy isn't found in their statements, but in the impact of their deeds. Every life they touched, every barrier they broke, every heart they uplifted, these are the echoes of their actions. And that is the power of living a life of quiet, deliberate action. Words are easy. Anyone can say them. Anyone can promise, proclaim, or preach. But action requires courage, patience, and resilience. It requires consistency, even when no one is watching. A strong woman understands that it is not what she announces in a meeting, on social media, or to the world that defines her. It is what she quietly accomplishes behind the scenes that counts. She understands that the world may not always notice her immediately, but her results will eventually speak for themselves. And when they do, the impact is far more profound than any declaration could ever be. Actions also inspire trust in ways words never can. Imagine someone who constantly talks about honesty, integrity, and values, yet fails to live by them. Over time, people start to doubt her words. But when someone consistently demonstrates honesty through her actions, when she lives her principles day after day, people begin to believe in her, they begin to respect her, they begin to follow her. This is why a strong woman focuses more on doing than on speaking. She knows that credibility is built through repeated, consistent action, not through grandiose statements. The power of action is also transformative. Words can inform, but actions transform. Words may motivate for a moment, but actions create lasting change. A mother who feeds the hungry, a teacher who spends extra hours guiding her students, a leader who stays calm and makes thoughtful decisions in crisis. These actions ripple through lives, inspiring others to act as well. And this is why strong women focus on action. They understand that even a single deed, performed with intention and love, can create a ripple effect far greater than the loudest speech ever delivered. Strong women also understand that actions require patience and endurance. When you act, you don't always see results immediately. When you speak, the effect is instantaneous. People hear, they react. But when you act, the fruits of your labor may take months, years, or even decades to manifest. And yet, the strong persist. They understand that meaningful action is rarely flashy or fast. It is steady, continuous, and intentional. And this is why their impact often outlives them, because they focused on substance rather than spectacle. Moreover, action communicates authenticity. People can detect when someone is authentic versus when someone is merely performing. Words can be rehearsed, actions cannot. When a woman acts out of genuine care, wisdom, or courage, people feel it. There is an unspoken power in that authenticity. No words can ever replicate it. Her presence, her deeds, her integrity, all speak louder than any argument or proclamation. And this authenticity not only earns respect, but inspires others to emulate her behavior, creating a culture of action rather than empty promises. Strong women also know that their actions often influence others more than their instructions ever could. A teacher who shows patience teaches patience. A mother who demonstrates courage teaches courage. A leader who shows empathy encourages empathy. When you act, you lead by example. And this, my friends, is far more effective than any speech, lecture, or advice. People don't just remember what you say, they remember what you do. The legacy of a woman's life is written in her actions, not her words. Another aspect of action is that it requires accountability. When you act, you take responsibility for outcomes, both good and bad. When you only speak, you can retreat into excuses or rhetoric. But action exposes you to reality, and the ability to face reality, to take ownership, and to persevere despite obstacles is a hallmark of true strength. A strong woman embraces this responsibility. She understands that her deeds define her more than her words ever could. So, if there is one lesson to remember from this, it is this: words may attract attention, but actions create impact. Shouting about your intentions is easy. Walking the path of integrity, courage, and persistence is difficult. But it is in that difficulty that strength is forged. Strong women understand this, and they live it. They don't just tell the world who they are or what they stand for. They show it day after day, quietly, consistently, and powerfully. And when you look at their lives, you realize that the real voice, the one that echoes across time, is the voice of action. Remember, my friends, The next time you are tempted to announce your intentions loudly, think instead about how your actions can speak. The world is listening not just to your words, but to the life you are living. Strong women don't just talk, they act. And in that action, they inspire, they uplift, and they create a legacy far greater than any words ever could. Actions speak louder than words, and that is where true power, true respect, and true influence reside. Have you ever noticed how easily the world around us can get chaotic? People shouting at each other, tempers flaring, misunderstandings multiplying, conflicts arising even in the smallest of situations. And in the middle of all this chaos, there are women who seem unshakable. They have a quiet composure, a clarity in their eyes, and a calmness in their voice. They have something the world desperately needs, yet often overlooks: emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, manage, and channel your own emotions, while also recognizing and empathizing with the emotions of others. And let me tell you today, this is not just a soft skill. It is one of the greatest strengths a human being, especially a woman, can possess. Many people confuse emotional intelligence with being emotional, or they think it is about suppressing feelings. But it is neither. Emotional intelligence is the art of balance. It is the power to feel deeply without being overwhelmed. It is the ability to respond wisely rather than react impulsively. A woman with emotional intelligence understands that anger, frustration, fear, or disappointment are natural, but they do not have to dictate her actions. She can experience them fully, process them consciously, and then choose the most constructive way to act. That choice, that control over oneself, is strength. Real strength is not measured by how loudly you can express your anger, but by how gracefully you can rise above it. Emotional intelligence allows a woman to navigate the complexities of life with finesse. Life is full of challenges, relationships that are testing, work situations that are stressful, personal ambitions that require sacrifices. Without emotional intelligence, these challenges can become overwhelming. But with it, a woman can maintain perspective. She can see beyond the immediate chaos and focus on solutions rather than blame. She can remain compassionate when others are critical, patient when situations are frustrating, and resilient when things do not go as planned. That ability to remain steady, to think clearly in emotionally charged moments, is a form of power that cannot be measured by muscle or volume. It is an inner strength that radiates outward and influences everyone around her. One of the most important aspects of emotional intelligence is empathy. A woman who can step into another person's shoes, who can understand their struggles, fears, and joys, possesses a kind of wisdom that words alone cannot convey. Empathy does not mean weakness. On the contrary, it requires courage to truly see and feel the pain or perspective of someone else without judgment. It requires confidence to stay grounded in your own values while being open to understanding another. And it is this ability to connect deeply with people that allows strong women to lead, mentor, and inspire. People follow them not because they demand attention, but because they feel seen, heard, and understood. Emotional intelligence also means managing conflict gracefully. Think about the situations we all face: arguments at home, disagreements at work, tensions in social settings. The instinct of many is to react immediately, often in anger or frustration. But a woman with emotional intelligence pauses. She assesses the situation, understands the emotions involved, and responds in a way that seeks resolution rather than escalation. She does not need to prove herself right. She does not need to win the argument. She seeks understanding and solutions. That ability to respond rather than react, to act with wisdom rather than impulse, is a form of strength that cannot be ignored. It is a power that builds trust, respect, and long-lasting relationships. Another remarkable aspect of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. A strong woman knows herself. She recognizes her triggers, her strengths, her weaknesses, and her patterns of behavior. She understands what makes her angry, what makes her anxious, and what brings her joy. And with that understanding, she can navigate life deliberately rather than being tossed around by her emotions. She can choose responses that align with her values and long-term goals rather than being controlled by short-term impulses. This level of self-awareness is rare, and it is a hallmark of strength. It allows her to maintain inner peace, even when the world around her is in turmoil. Emotional intelligence also enhances decision-making. A woman who understands her own emotions and those of others can make choices that are balanced, compassionate, and wise. She does not let fear or pride dictate her actions. She considers the emotional impact of her decisions, not just the logical consequences. And this ability to combine heart and mind leads to solutions that are thoughtful, effective, and transformative. People gravitate toward her because they know she sees beyond surface level appearances. She sees the essence of people and situations, and she acts accordingly. Finally, emotional intelligence is a lifelong investment in oneself and others. It is the skill that strengthens relationships, nurtures communities, and builds resilience. A woman who masters emotional intelligence inspires those around her to do the same. She teaches, through her actions, that strength is not in dominating others, but in understanding them. She shows that leadership is not about authority, but about influence. She demonstrates that the greatest power comes from mastering oneself, rather than attempting to control the world. So, let us remember, emotional intelligence is not a soft skill, it is strength in its purest form. It allows a woman to navigate life's storms with grace, to build meaningful connections, to make wise decisions, and to leave a lasting impact on everyone she encounters. It is the calm in the chaos, the wisdom in confusion, and the courage in vulnerability. Strong women do not just react, they understand. They do not just speak, they empathize. They do not just exist, they transform. Emotional intelligence is the silent power that makes them unshakable, respected, and truly strong. In a world that constantly encourages us to speak up, to defend ourselves, to fight back, the idea of silence may seem weak. Many people equate silence with submission or passivity. But I want to tell you something today: silence is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful tools a woman can wield. Strong women understand that in moments of conflict, in moments of anger, in moments of tension, choosing silence can be more powerful than the loudest words or the sharpest retorts. Silence has a way of disarming situations, of calming storms, and of revealing strength in a way that shouting never can. Think about it. When someone raises their voice at you, when someone criticizes you unfairly, or when someone tries to provoke a reaction, what is the first instinct? Most of us want to respond immediately. We want to defend ourselves, to prove a point, to retaliate. And yet, in that reaction, in that rush to speak, we often lose more than we gain. Words can escalate conflict. They can create misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and even long-term damage to relationships. But silence allows space. It allows the storm to pass. It allows emotions to settle, and in that space, clarity emerges. Silence is not about ignoring the problem, it is about choosing the right way to respond. A strong woman knows that every word spoken in anger is a potential weapon, not a solution. She understands that responding impulsively can inflame the situation further. But by remaining calm and silent, she creates a pause, a moment for reflection, for understanding, for perspective. In that pause, the other person often begins to reflect as well. They realize that their anger or aggression is not having the effect they intended. They see that the woman before them is not reacting, not fighting, but standing firm with dignity and composure. And in that realization, conflict begins to dissolve. Silence is also a form of listening. When we are tempted to shout, to interrupt, to prove ourselves right, we stop listening. And most conflicts are not resolved by shouting, they are resolved by understanding. A strong woman uses silence to truly listen, to understand the other person's fears, frustrations, and motives. She does not merely wait for her turn to speak, she absorbs, she empathizes, and through this deep listening, she gains insight. She understands not only what is being said, but what is being felt. And once she understands, she can respond in a way that is thoughtful, strategic, and compassionate, qualities that shouting could never achieve. There is also a subtle, almost invisible power in silence. It can disarm aggression without confrontation. Imagine a situation where someone is angry with you. They are loud, they are forceful, they expect a reaction. And instead of matching their energy, you remain calm, quiet, and composed. That silence confuses them. They are expecting a verbal clash, a fight, or a defensiveness, but none comes. And in that absence of reaction, something remarkable happens. They start to mirror your calmness. The intensity of their anger begins to diminish. Silence has a way of neutralizing hostility without aggression, a way of transforming conflict into reflection. Strong women also know that silence protects dignity. When we shout, we may win a point temporarily, but we often lose respect. When we react impulsively, we may satisfy an immediate emotion, but we damage our credibility in the long run. Silence, on the other hand, conveys confidence, self-control, and authority. It communicates, I do not need to prove myself. I am secure in who I am, and I will not be shaken by temporary provocation. There is a grace in that kind of silence, a power that commands respect without intimidation. Moreover, silence allows for strategic thinking. Conflicts are rarely solved by instinctive reactions. They require observation, analysis, and timing. By choosing silence in the heat of the moment, a woman gives herself the gift of time. Time to understand the situation fully. Time to weigh her words carefully. Time to respond not from emotion, but from wisdom. And when she finally does speak, her words carry weight, clarity, and impact. She does not speak to retaliate. She speaks to resolve, to influence, and to heal. Silence also inspires reflection in others. When someone expects a fight and receives calmness instead, it challenges them. It forces them to reconsider their approach, to question their aggression, and to recognize the strength in composure. This is why silence is not passive, it is transformative. It can shift the dynamics of any conflict, turning hostility into dialogue, anger into understanding, and chaos into calm. Finally, silence teaches a powerful lesson about restraint. Life constantly presents situations that test our patience, provoke our emotions, and challenge our composure. A strong woman uses silence not just in moments of external conflict, but as a daily practice of self-mastery. She knows that restraint is strength. She knows that every reaction does not need to be immediate. Every challenge does not require confrontation, and every provocation does not require defense. Through silence, she cultivates inner peace, clarity of thought, and the power to influence without aggression. So remember this: strong women do not shout. They do not seek to overpower others with their voice. They understand that true strength often speaks in silence. They understand that silence can disarm conflict, inspire reflection, and convey dignity. They know that in a world filled with noise, the calm and composed presence of a strong woman can have a far greater impact than 1,000 words shouted in anger. Silence is not weakness, it is power. It is courage, it is strategy, and in the hands of a woman who has mastered it, silence becomes a force that can transform relationships, resolve conflict, and leave a lasting impression on the world. In our modern world, many people confuse strength with the ability to tolerate everything, to say yes to every request, to sacrifice endlessly without complaint. But the truth is, strength is not about bending yourself to fit everyone else's expectations. Strength is about knowing your limits, honoring your values, and setting boundaries. Boundaries are not walls built to isolate, they are fences built to protect, to nurture, and to define who you are. Strong women understand this deeply. They know that the ability to say no, to define their space, and to protect their energy is one of the most profound demonstrations of power. A boundary is not rude. A boundary is not selfish. It is an acknowledgement of self-worth. It is a declaration that your time, energy, and peace matter. Many people feel guilty about saying no because society often glorifies self-sacrifice, especially for women. But strong women know that overextending oneself is not generosity, it is depletion. When you give everything of yourself without discernment, you eventually have nothing left to give to those who truly matter. By setting boundaries, a woman ensures that her energy is preserved, her priorities are respected, and her actions have the maximum impact. Boundaries are the invisible armor that allows her to operate at her highest potential. Consider the power of saying no. It is a simple word, just 2 letters, yet it carries immense weight. Saying no does not make you unkind, it makes you intentional. A strong woman does not apologize for protecting her time or her values. She knows that every yes carries a consequence, and every no creates space for what truly aligns with her purpose. Boundaries allow her to invest herself where it matters most. They allow her to focus on her family, her career, her growth, and her passions without being drained by endless demands or external pressures. That focus, that clarity is strength. Boundaries are also about emotional protection. Life is full of people who may not understand you, who may take advantage of your kindness, or who may try to manipulate your generosity. Without boundaries, You become vulnerable to exhaustion, disappointment, and resentment. But a woman who sets clear boundaries communicates silently yet powerfully. I respect myself, and I expect respect in return. She does not allow anyone to diminish her peace or control her emotions. She creates a space where her values, her dignity, and her energy are safeguarded. And in doing so, she demonstrates strength that is both visible and invisible, a quiet confidence that commands respect without needing to demand it. Boundaries also define relationships. The strongest connections in life are not built on sacrifice and overextension. They are built on mutual respect and understanding. When a woman sets boundaries, she teaches others how to treat her. She establishes what is acceptable and what is not. This clarity fosters healthier relationships where respect is given and received naturally. People may initially resist boundaries, but over time, they come to value and honor them. In fact, boundaries often enhance love, friendship, and collaboration because they create an environment where each person feels safe, respected, and valued. Moreover, boundaries are empowering because they create freedom. Many people mistakenly believe that saying no or limiting themselves is restrictive. But in reality, her boundaries give you the freedom to live intentionally. They allow you to focus your energy, time, and emotions on what matters most. A strong woman does not spread herself thin, trying to please everyone. She channels her energy strategically toward her purpose. She understands that power lies not in doing everything, but in doing the right things with intention, focus, and clarity. Boundaries are the compass that guides her actions and protects her from distractions that dilute her strength. Boundaries are also about self-respect. It takes courage to assert them, especially in a world that may label you as difficult, selfish, or unkind. But a strong woman knows that every compromise that violates her values chips away at her integrity. She understands that true respect is earned when you honor yourself first. She knows that by maintaining boundaries, she communicates a simple but powerful truth: I matter. My time matters. My energy matters. And my values matter. That unwavering commitment to herself is magnetic. It draws people who appreciate and honor her, and it repels negativity that seeks to drain or undermine her. Another remarkable aspect of boundaries is that they model behavior for others. Women who establish clear, firm boundaries inspire those around them, family, friends, colleagues, to do the same. They teach by example that it is okay to protect your time, your peace, and your values. They show that strength is not in being available to everyone at all times, but in being intentional, focused, and purposeful. Boundaries ripple outwards, creating a culture of respect, self-care, and empowerment. Ultimately, boundaries are a form of self-mastery. They are a reflection of self-awareness, self-respect, and emotional intelligence. They are the quiet declaration that a woman is in control of her life, her choices, and her energy. By setting boundaries, she does not isolate herself, she strengthens herself. She does not reject the world, she engages with it intentionally. She does not shrink under pressure, she rises with clarity and purpose. So, remember this: strong women do not overextend themselves to please others. They do not compromise their values to gain approval. They do not sacrifice their peace for temporary convenience. They set boundaries, not as a sign of weakness, but as a statement of strength. Boundaries define their power, protect their energy, enhance their relationships, and allow them to operate with focus, integrity, and purpose. A woman who understands boundaries understands herself. And a woman who understands herself is unstoppable.